Hello and welcome everyone to another live session of Careers in Media Science presented by the Department of Media Science, the Heritage Academy. Today we have with us adman, writer, actor, model, and the English nut himself, Sumanto Chattopadhyay. As the former chairman and chief creative officer of 82.5 Communications Ogilvy, Mr. Chattopadhyay has made a lasting impact with his inventive campaigns and strategic brand development. His work has earned him international acclaim, including prestigious awards at Cannes, Chaos, and Recce. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much, sir, for making time for us. Before we start this conversation, I would like to invite our Dean, Professor Madhupa Bakshi, to say a few words.
Thank you, Anushka. Welcome, Sumanto, to the Department of Media Science of the Heritage Academy. Thank you for giving time to the students and at least giving them precious advice about their future. We look forward to you being in campus soon, provided you have the time. Also, we would request you to guide us in future in to our students in their career aspirations. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, ma'am. So without further ado, we'll go into the questions, sir. So I would like to start by asking you what inspired you to pursue a career in advertising and what was the challenges you faced as a fresher and throughout the course of your career?
Okay. So, first of all, I mean, for many of you are probably not aware of my academic background. You would be really surprised by it because it doesn't have that much to do with advertising. So I actually have for my bachelor's degree, I have a double major in mathematics and economics, and then I did a master's degree in applied mathematics, and then I did an MBA. So it was when I was actually just a very confused. I wanted to be a student all my life. I didn't know what I wanted to do as a career. That was my mindset at that point in time. But while I was doing the MBA program, I we had a class on advertising, and actually that was what I found the most interesting because I was kind of bored with things like I don't know, accounting and stuff like that. But in the advertising class, we would be shown lots of interesting TV commercials, and I thought, hey, this is pretty cool, and making these would be interesting. I had no idea what about the advertising industry or what a job entailed, but I just had the feeling that, I mean, this was something that I at least enjoyed watching, so I thought it'd be fun working on it as well. So that was one of the things. And another was that when I was in my last semester of my MBA, there was this competition to write a slogan for French tourism, and my slogan won. I actually don't remember what I had written, but I do remember I won the prize. And that was also a sad story because the prize was to go to France, and of course Air France was the sponsor and all that. And when I was supposed to go, there was a strike of Air France, so I didn't end up going. But anyway, so that was another thing that made me feel, hey, I can do this because I wrote the slogan which for an international competition and it won. So that was another thing that kind of made me predisposed to advertising. The other thing was that I had kind of met a couple of people who were in advertising, and what I found was that I don't know if you guys can hear me because
Yes,
Anushka
yes,
has.
we
Yeah,
can
yeah,
hear you, sir. We can hear
yeah,
you.
okay. Yeah. So what happened was that I found that, so one thing was my classmates in the MBA, they loved wearing suits and ties and shirts and all of that. And I was this guy who liked to wear t-shirts and jeans and even shorts. And I found that from a couple of people that I knew in advertising, that uh, they had a very relaxed dress code at work. So I thought this is a place where I would be a good fit. So I think these were like, I've given you multiple answers as to
Right.
why, what
You
inspired me to
started that.
advertising. To get to the challenges that I faced in my advertising career. So one of the things that I want to mention, it's probably not something that people talk about a lot, But and this is true not only of advertising, but any big company or organization that you join. There's a lot of politics.
Right.
And I remember, so one of the ways that these politics manifested themselves was that, for young creative people, being able to win awards is a very big thing. You want to win awards. Uh, Now, awards, there's an entry fee for an award. So the agency,
Right.
it's not like every piece of work that you have, and you might think it's great, but the bosses might decide not to enter them because there's a budget and there are multiple creative people, and they certain pieces will get chosen over others. But I was really convinced the first year that this happened to me that I've got some great potentially award winning pieces, and I put them, there was a list, I put them on the list, and then I found that they were dropped from the list, and there were these people who were like very close to the bosses, if you know what I mean. So they put their pieces in, and then they removed mine to make space for theirs.
Mhm.
And I was really dejected at first. I actually thought I'm going to quit, and then I said, no, I've got to fight it out. And I think that's true of everything in life. So I fought it out. Not only that, I was sneaky. I sneakily put it back in the list. I made friends with the person in charge of the list. And finally, my pieces went, and they actually won awards as
Actually,
well. But the amazing part of it is that the following year, I was back. I mean, again, you'd think that, okay, I'd established my credentials, but the next year, again, I had to fight tooth and nail to get my entries in. So, yeah. So, this is something, those of you going into the working world, you have to be aware that things like this happen, and you have to steel yourselves to it. And you have to know that, anything that's worthwhile for you is worth fighting for. And you have to, I mean, of course, you can find smart ways of fighting for it, but you've got to get your work through.
So we believe in ourselves and then the process.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
so moving on, when we are talking about awards, what are the important indispensable elements in any ad campaign that a creator keeps in mind, like has to keep in mind?
So I think the most important thing is that uh, what is it that you want your target audience to think, feel, and do after seeing your ad? You need to have that clarity in your head. You're not just making this exciting or interesting ad, a piece of creative. It has to move somebody to do something, buy a product, or change a behavior, or whatever it is. Be predisposed to a particular brand, or rethink. They may have used a traditional uh, type of breakfast food in the past, and you have to convince them to have Kellogg's cornflakes, whatever it is. You're trying to convince somebody of something, so you're doing, it's a salesman's job, and that is something that you should always have at the back of your mind. uh, the other thing is, of course, as creative people, it is our job as advertising people to put across the message in a creative way. uh, because if you don't do that, people are not going to bother to even pay attention to you. But it's a fine balance, because you can't be creative in such a way that your target audience doesn't appreciate or understand it. They have to get what you're saying, so you have to keep that in mind. And campaigns are often researched by clients, but long before that, what I would suggest is that you have colleagues in the company that you work for, or whoever. There's somebody whose creative judgment you trust, and who will be honest with you, and you share your ideas with that person, and get so right at the time when you're coming up with the ideas. Because at times we tend to get so excited and carried away with our idea, and we don't realize that when we put that in front of the people that ad is meant for, they may not warm up to it at all. So I think that keeping that is in mind is very important. And the third very important thing that I think we need to keep in mind is to remember that the ad we are making is an intrusion in the life of the target audience, right? I mean,
Right.
that person may be watching a movie, a cricket match, a web series, and you suddenly pop in and interrupt their entertainment. So you need to of course, there's a message that you need to get across, but you need to also be entertaining in the way that you do it, so that the person just doesn't get really annoyed with you. You're putting, I mean, they get your message, and you do it in a way with a soft enough touch that, okay, they're entertained and they're communicated to, and they're not annoyed with you for having interrupted their
Right.
cricket.
So moving on, so you were talking about campaigns and ads. So the Pond's Face Ka Charger was one of the most acclaimed campaigns. So can you share a funny anecdote or behind the scenes stories from the making of that campaign?
Well, so first of all, that was an ad. Pons is a brand owned by Unilever, and Unilever
Right.
is, they believe they do everything in a very structured way, and you have to probably then do 10 meetings and present 10 rounds of ideas before they even kind of say, okay, this idea looks like, or these two ideas look like they have potential, and then they will research them, and all of that. So we went through that entire process, and this was a big launch for them because it was the first time that they were launching a product for men. So there were a lot of questions. Pons has a very feminine image, so will it work, etc., etc. Then we decided, okay, we need a celebrity, because celebrities help you cut through the clutter when you have a new, particularly when it's something completely new. And who do you use? A lot of the celeb cricketers and movie stars will already be associated with a competitive brand. You need somebody who's up and coming and young. So anyway, so that's how at that time Varun Dhawan fit the bill. So he was signed up, and I had been at that time working with an American director called Eden Tyler, who had been coming to India and shooting. I'd shot some Pond's like not Dream Flower Tile, other Pond's women's products with him, and Lakme and things like that. So we signed him up, because, and also he was good at giving a very slick look to the films. So we thought that would work. But the funny thing was that, the way that he pronounced Varun Dhawan's name, because he couldn't say it properly, and he kept saying Varun throughout. So we were all in spirits, and even
Right.
Varun would start uh, laughing about it. And Varun at that point was like very sweet and very cooperative, which a lot of the stars are not, by the way. He came on time for the set. I've worked with Shah Rukh Khan, where Shah Rukh Khan has turned up 10 hours late for his shoot. Can you imagine? So, the studios book, the sets are up, and you're paying everybody. But so 10 hours means that one entire shift has gone, and you've paid a huge sum of money to all the technicians, all the equipment that's been hired, the set that is standing, and of course for the studio. So yeah, and then he'll show up very apologetic, and then of course, he'll be very cooperative at that point. But thankfully for this ad, Varun Dhawan didn't do anything like that. So
Didn't.
yeah, yeah.
Great. So while we're talking about campaigns, how do you go about infusing storytelling into the strategies?
Well, the thing is that, storytelling, I know it's become a buzzword now, but storytelling is the fundamental job that we as creative people are doing. And there's a very good reason for that. Uh, Human beings are storytelling animals. The way that we process information is through stories. If you just tell somebody the bald facts about something, they they may not register them. But if you tell it in the form of a story, people remember the story, and therefore they understand what the
Right.
point is that you're trying to make. So which is why it's really important. So when you're writing a script for a TV commercial or an online video, of course you are writing the script of a story. But even, let's say, you're doing a print ad, it's a static visual, but even that visual is actually telling a story. So all you weave all the creative elements together to give your message in a memorable way, and that is actually storytelling. So I don't know whether I've sort of answered your question in a
Right. Yes.
yeah, that's
Yes.
what we're doing.
So, of all the award-winning campaigns, could you share the one which is closest to your heart?
Yeah, so I mean, there are lots of these award-winning campaigns that I've done over the years, but there's one which always sticks in my mind, and that's a campaign that I worked on for adoption. So several years
Right.
ago.
In time, I'll also ask Thomas to show the campaign while we're talking about it.
Yeah. So just to give
Yes,
you a background, meantime, I was working at that time with uh, an NGO called IAPA.
right, right.
The three ads are on the screen. So, this was many years ago in the early part of this century. I think I don't know, it was 2004 maybe or something like that. But at that time, adoption was a taboo subject. People didn't like to talk about it, and there was a very negative approach towards it. And people said, "Oh yeah, of course, you're saving the life of this child, who's otherwise will live in misery in an orphanage." Uh, but at that time, you know, I some friends of mine adopted two children, and I saw that it wasn't like the parents were doing something for the kid. What I found was that the kids were transformed. That child was transforming the life of the parents, bringing them so much joy. So while the typical conversation was, oh, yeah, it's a noble thing that you do for the children, I felt that if we could flip that narrative and say it's a wonderful thing that that child does for the parent, that's what it is. So, and in creativity, you always, I believe in this concept of flipping it, where you do the reverse of what is the conventional wisdom. So, if you see in this, the each of the three ads that you guys saw on screen, there was a child holding the parent in his or her lap, and there was this look of bliss on that parent's face. So that is actually the reverse of the typical ad would have a parent holding a child. So I said, let's flip it. And the other thing was, if you can read the line at the bottom, it says,
Yes,
adopt, you will receive far more than you can ever give. So that was that about that wonderful feeling that you get as being a parent, whether it's of a child that you've given birth to, or if that's a child that you've adopted. And this I felt that this really gave a positive image to adoption, which at that time there was a very, very negative. I mean, it was like I said, people didn't even talk. I heard from the NGO that even people who adopted, there were women who would go to another town, adopt a child, and come back and pretend that they had given birth to. So
yes, their
that was
own child.
so I felt that this campaign went a lot. I mean, of course, there was not much media budget on it, but this was pre-social media days, and I remember in those days there was this concept of email forwards, where there would be these emails that would circulate, which had like people's favorite ads in them, and I was really happy because of the number of times my campaign came back to me as one of these email forwards. But uh, as I said, it won awards. There was this kind of virality on email. But the thing that touched me the most was, once, many years, like 8, 9 years after I did this campaign, I got a call in my office from this lady, and she said, "Hi, I'm from Bangalore. I'm in town. I'm a journalist, and I wanted to talk to you about something. Can I meet you for half an hour?" So I said, "Okay." And she came to the office and she said, when I saw your campaign 8 years ago, I was inspired to adopt a little baby girl, and she's like 8 years old today. And I just wanted to tell you, and I mean, that was like that really blew me away, because frankly speaking, when we do campaigns for brands, you're finally selling a product, and it's all about just helping a corporation make money is to sell a product. But I feel that when you're doing an ad campaign, a social awareness campaign, and you're able to make a difference to society like this, change perceptions like this, I mean, it was something that's why it's my favorite campaign.
Right. So, sir, from your perspective, how do you foresee the future of advertising evolving, especially with the search of the digital platforms?
Well, I think that things are changing dramatically. It's not just digital platforms. I think it's artificial intelligence, which is dramatically changing. I mean, already today we're all using Chat GPT
Right.
uh, to generate ideas. We're using Mid Journey to create visuals. Now video has also been introduced. So there are there are lots of jobs which are going to be lost. There are lots of things that they're going to be. So the same amount, what you needed 10 people to do can be done by one person. But what I feel, which is why for people like in your uh, college, for example, it's you're going into the working world. What you have to know is that you have to be completely know the ins and outs of the AI tools that are out there. You have to know how to see creativity. As of now, creativity will still play a role, though. Even, I mean, I think AI is fast catching up with that as well. But I think it's how cleverly you use AI to create an ad campaign, for example, is what is going to guarantee your success in this career over somebody who is not able to use AI that well, not able to get the right answer, not able to give the right prompts or whatever it is. But it is a reality. We are already using these tools to create advertising. And like I said, the tools are just, I mean, getting so sophisticated. I mean, from ChatGPT 1 to ChatGPT 4, the level of
Right.
sophistication is enormous, and it's just going to get more and more. And imagine today when we make a TV commercial, after you've got the script approved, you have to hire a director, which is this whole process of getting quotes, and then the client approves a quote, and then you have lots of meetings, and you hire models. A lot of this is just going to get automated. You
Right.
just type in a story and the video is going to come out on the other end. So
Right.
yeah, so
So we
I
can consider AI to be a threat.
yeah, I mean, AI is a threat, but you have to make it your ally by really learning how get so deeply into it that you're in the best position. And so you can become a one person ad agency with the help of AI, and you will
Right.
flourish as opposed to the people who didn't use the AI or didn't really know how best to use it to create the ad campaigns that were required. So that I think is something that we're going. And I think, trust me, even a year from now, the situation is going to be completely different from what it is today.
Right. So, sir, watching English Nut is one of my favorite pastimes. So, how did you come up with that idea? Where did it start from?
So again, multiple reasons. I think it was so. First of all, I've always been this English nut and a grammar Nazi, and my colleagues always, it was always me who was approached even by my seniors and bosses. Anything related to English, I was asked. I was considered the go-to person for that. So that was one part of it. And I remember one of my colleagues kept telling me, Shumanto, you need to do something with this skill that you have. Do a. So initially, I started doing a blog. And then. I that was the age that was like 5 years ago, and that's when everybody said video is the future, video on social media. So I said, okay, I need to make it video. And of course, the reason that I chose all of these things to make videos about English, because also I felt that it combined all the skills that I have. I mean, I am a writer. I I've been an actor on and off, so I felt that I could use those skills in front of the camera as well. Uh, I write scripts for advertising, so I said yes, I'll write scripts for my videos. And the other thing was that I think we all go through these frustrating phases when we're in advertising, where we come up with these great campaigns and our clients don't approve them. And no matter how senior you get, you learn to live with that, but it still hurts. And then I said, if I'm my own client on the English Nut, I'll be able to do stuff which I want to do without bothering about what other people are saying. So I think all of these things kind of put together. And the other thing was that, social media, people like us who are from, I call myself a digital dinosaur. We are not digital natives like you guys are. We were not born with the digital media. We were not born with smartphones. In fact, they came to our lives very late. So it doesn't come naturally to us. And so what I felt was that since we have to do social media communication for our clients, if I have my own social media handle, learning to use that and learning to run that, there's no better way of learning something than to do it yourself. So I think that was another big reason. And an added bonus for me was that, which I never expected, was when I would go for a new business pitch, a lot of these potential clients would say, "Oh, you're the English nut." So I got a certain level of recognition among marketing people for this, something which was my side hustle at that time, which opened doors for me when I went to a meeting with a new set of people that I had not met earlier.
Right. So now we'll take some questions because our students also have questions they would want to ask you.
Okay.
Wait. Okay.
That's
So
super interesting.
yeah. Mm,
Ritika, loving the discussion.
mm. So while we are waiting for the questions, I would like to ask you what suggestions would you like to give the budding copywriters? Because with the AI and everything, it's very difficult now. What do they do?
So, I think that ultimately it's about human experience. And what I would say is that uh, as a copywriter, there are a number of things you can do. One is that study the great campaigns of the past and read the books written by some of the advertising greats like Ogilvy on advertising. See, the media has changed, but I think some of the principles have not changed. So I think there's a lot that you can gain from reading uh, the books of some of the great advertising people of the past. The other thing is that to really immerse yourself in culture. So I think some of us, we come from backgrounds where we've lived only in one city, or we've lived in a privileged household. We sometimes don't understand. For me, because again, I used to work on Unilever brands early in my career. We used to go for a lot of research groups in small towns. We'd go to small towns and we'd be in another room and watching on. But I'd be amazed to see these ladies, from these middle class families in some small town in Maharashtra, for example, and the way that they thought and the way that they react to the ad was so different from the way I did. So I think that, I remember somebody once told me, travel by train across the length and breadth of India. There's no better way of, getting to know this country. So maybe, people can do that.
Right. So with that, we would end today's session. Thank you so much for your time,
Okay.
sir.
All right.
And thank you everybody for joining in and keep watching this space for more insightful conversations. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks a lot. Bye
Thank
bye.
you, sir. Thank you so much.